Every person has a story, but not everyone has a place to tell it. I've interviewed amazing people all over the planet. I want you to meet them.
Hi, my name is Rafael Sermeno, pronounced Sermeno, and I am a most interesting person you've never heard before because life has been great here in America. I'm an immigrant, and I've had careers in the military and law enforcement, and now in education. And at 67, I'm just getting started.
Raph, cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to the most interesting person you've never heard of podcast. Thanks for being my guest.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll get into how we met, which was pretty cool, in the incredible metropolis of George Washington.
Indeed.
Which I love the name anyway. But you grew up in El Salvador.
Yes, I did.
What? So tell me that transition, because I always remember hearing, it's a Catholic kid, growing up here. We would always be praying for, give, assistance to missions in El Salvador.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if that was just part of maybe the nuns here, but there was a tumultuous time as well going on lots of times during times in El Salvador. Tell me what your earliest memories of El Salvador are and how you came here.
Well, I was born in April of 1957, but I was not in a little town on the western side of El Salvador, a coffee growing region. I was not registered till July, so my birth date is in July, and
But you were born in April?
indeed. So had I expired, I would have never been around, I guess.
Whoa.
But so
what do you celebrate, April or July?
April.
Yeah, good, because that's when you really were born.
Oh, July when I go to Denny's and get a free meal.
You can do it. You can double dip.
No, I can't. I can only prove July.
Oh, I see. You proved July, but you celebrate April. Okay.
Indeed, you mentioned Catholicism. Well, my parents were able to pay for a Jesuit education growing up.
Well, you and I have that in common.
Indeed. And so my dad had a successful business, and the strong men in, if you will, the president of El Salvador back in 1965-ish, somewhere around there, summoned my father to the presidential palace and basically told him, we've seen your business, you're very successful, you're going to give that to us, otherwise we'll kill you and your family. Flat out, he said, the 9mm got on my hip, well, I'll use that to put a bullet in your head, and then we're going to go after your family. If you don't see
This is the president of El Salvador.
Yeah. Yeah. And so my dad, what was he to do? Well,
It's a pretty clear choice.
indeed. And stuff like that is happening to people that I've met recently from Venezuela here. So it's,
It comes full circle.
Indeed. And and so that was kind of a blessing because we came to the San Francisco Bay Area where my mom had gone to high school and college.
Okay, so your mom was from the United States.
No.
She had come to college.
She had gone to high school and college in San Francisco.
Oh, interesting.
And that's where her aunts and her father was at. So they were able to sponsor us. And we came. And that was in...
So how quickly do you remember how quickly you had to get out of town? Pretty quickly?
No, I never even knew that story till my father related that to me not long ago.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, he's 90 and my mom's 91. They live in the Bay Area.
No way.
Yeah. So, and it's a typical immigrant story. I mean,
That's not a typical immigrant story.
It is in the sense that you come here to better yourself.
Yeah. Well, and escape from what would have been not a good situation.
Exactly. Not a good situation. And, heck, I'm as American anybody else. You know,
When did you? How old were you when you came here? Do you remember?
9 years old.
So you were 9 when you came here.
Right, 9.
Wow. Were you excited about it, or were you not excited about it? Do you
No,
remember?
I was excited. You know, exciting, exciting because I was excited because I was going to a new place, and heck, you know, with a kid's mentality, a kid's mind, I knew there was color TV. You know, and,
That's a good. Okay, well, there's one.
and you know, other things. Just it was kind of going to supermarkets was kind of a sensory overload
I bet
because never been in a supermarket before.
everything was an outdoor market, or
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know,
were you in a rural town, or were you in a city?
no, we
Where
were
you-
in the capital at that time, but even in
San
the
Salvador?
capital, yeah, San Salvador. Even in the capital, there were not what we would call. I remember one market, and it wasn't like a supermarket, but it was like a big store. And it seemed modern. It was right
department
next to our
store or
school.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, because they also sold. I remember in the display they had toys, but it was food from what I gathered. But no, we went. You know, we would go. My mom would send out some of our housekeepers to go to the local market, get bread, get whatever we were going to have for dinner. But I never went without. We had the basics.
Your dad was a pretty successful guy, or
He
the
was.
president of the country wouldn't want to take his business.
Yeah, well, he was involved in the up and coming public transportation system. So he had his interests in different enterprises that were up and coming, and the powers that be noticed that, and you know, but again, you know, I guess the offer that he couldn't refuse, so to speak.
Yeah.
It turned
The
out to be a
Godfather.
blessing,
So,
indeed.
yeah. Did he relay any worry about him getting out of there or being watched, or they just sort of were able to somehow get away?
No, there was.
They had to leave everything, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he had other partners, so I don't know what those those
Details.
process, the details were, but so next thing I know, we're flying in a turboprop, Pan Am Airlines, you know, in a turboprop,
Wow.
flying, and we landed in my parents came here a few months ahead of us, and then they left us there with an uncle who was in the military, so we had some kind of protection, if you will. And so my brother and I came and landed in LAX, and I remember seeing, you know, that big iconic, what is it? It's not like a Space Needle.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I know,
The airport.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is kind of iconic. Yeah.
And then I had never met my grandfather, just knew him by name, but he picked us up, and we spent that summer of '66 in San Pedro, and had my first hamburger right there overlooking the airport, and it was a Jack in the Box.
It was?
It was a
In
Jack in the Box.
1966?
Yeah, I remember it was Jack in the Box, and
Huh.
had never tasted a hamburger before, and it was good. So we enjoyed it.
So how were you treated coming into the school there? You're 9 years old, right? So it's not like you started in first grade.
Correct. I went into fourth grade, and having gone to that Jesuit school, which, as it turned out, that Jesuit school produced a lot of the leadership from the left and from the right. You know, the Jesuits always being at the forefront
Yeah.
of education and
Yep.
society evolution.
They're still doing that.
Indeed, no, and so I often wondered, had I stayed there, which side would I have been on? Because I come to find out, I had classmates that were on both the left and the right,
Huh.
and here I am, eventually getting into the U.S. Army and going down and participating in that Civil War
Right.
as an American advisor.
Wow, the irony of that.
Yeah,
We'll get to that for sure.
it was interesting.
So how was it to grow up in the Bay Area? What town were you in Bay Area?
We came
Pedro?
straight to San Francisco, and San Francisco School District. I went to Monroe Elementary there in the Excelsior
In San
District.
Francisco?
Yeah, and let me
Wow.
tell you, The teachers were great. There was not very many Latino kids. There was, I recall, some Asian kids, mainly Filipino, but mainly white kids. But there was one kid, Victor Hurtado, whom they sat me next to. And Victor turned out to be an awesome friend. And he was my interpreter, my
Yeah, because you
translator.
did
He
not
was my
speak
guy.
English.
Exactly. No, but having gone to a Jesuit school, I knew the basics. I knew, hello, how are you?
Okay.
You know,
So that you did learn a little English.
yes. And
Okay.
so, and then we learned it phonetically.
Mm-hmm.
But that set a good foundation. And then from there, it was just English came. Well, at that time, they were also teaching French via public TV. So I was learning more French than English initially.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wish I would have continued it.
Yeah, right, right. So how was your time? You grew up, you spent your entire basically life in the Bay Area, growing up in
Yeah,
school?
indeed. From fourth grade in the San Francisco Public School District until, and then I went to Luther Burbank Junior High School, that was a shock because at that time with civil rights and all that, there was a lot of bullying going on. Fortunately, I saw a lot of the black kids bully the non-black kids. I guess they didn't know what side I was in, so to speak. So I was left alone.
You had a pass.
No kidding.
Wow.
But some of the poor, not poor in monetary, but I felt sorry for some of these kids that got picked on, that got bullied, and what was the extent of the bullying? Where's my quarter? Where's my quarter for protection? And if they didn't give up the quarter, they got beat up. And of course I was lucky because I never had a quarter.
Yeah.
But it was sad. The school was kind of chaotic, and I don't have very nice memories of it, except that I survived. I did get in one fight, and I must have impressed the bullies because they left me alone.
Wow. So but you also, when did your love for soccer happen?
Oh, growing up in soccer is very near and dear
Football.
football to Salvadorans. We went to war in 1969 over a qualifying game in Honduras. So basically,
What? Wait.
Well,
a war started because of a football
well, they
match.
called the soccer war. But in 1970, the World Cup was going to be held in Mexico, and so Mexico, being the host, got a slot for that World Cup, and there was only 16 teams. So that means that the CONCACAF region had one more slot, and because of the qualifying matches, it came down to a match between Honduras and El Salvador.
Who will probably have been rivals forever anyway.
Yes, but at that time, there was an ongoing border dispute between the two countries with illegal immigration and this and that. A lot of Hondurans wanted to come into El Salvador because economically El Salvador was in better shape, I suppose. And so, so the game was played in Tegucigalpa, and after the game, El Salvador, it was like a winner take all,
Right.
And so the winner got to go to the World Cup. And so El Salvador won, and then the crowd erupted. They came onto the field.
This is in Honduras. The game's in Honduras.
Yeah,
but El Salvador won.
Yeah, El Salvador won.
They probably didn't like the refs either.
Yeah. Who knows? And then I remember that night we were in San Francisco, and my uncle was a military attaché in D.C., and he calls my dad. I want to notify you that we are at war with Honduras
Because of the soccer match.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy when you think about it, because a lot of innocent people lost their lives. And the war lasted 100 hours before the Organization of American States intervened. And there was a ceasefire and this and that. So we go to the World Cup and we get our butts kicked. You got beat by Belgium 11-1, And so... But anyhow, it's called the soccer war. It really, I guess, the soccer match was the tipping point.
Right.
But there were other issues, economic and border issues that were ongoing. And so...
so you've seen a lot of... That was your introduction to soccer. Well, you played it, though, as a kid, did you?
I'm sorry?
Did you play soccer as a kid?
Oh yeah, I did, but really not at the Jesuit school. Yeah, we were. I was one of the organizers of my dad's second or third grade team. And I was heartbroken because I didn't get selected to go play in Guatemala. you know, but when I came to the States, then I got involved in the youth soccer system, I guess, and then I was that player that was the MVP in junior high school, in high school, and then played in a select team, a star among stars, and that makes you a better player. And then I played college ball, and then
Where was that?
at San Francisco State.
Okay.
And in that year, though, we beat USF, and USF went on to win the national championship.
Wow, is that right?
We beat them in a scrimmage, and that was a big kudo for us. But USF was a fantastic team. It was an international team with Brazilians, Nigerians, Scandinavians. It was an awesome team to watch.
Wow. But you beat them. You had your
We
day,
beat
your
them
glory
in
day.
the scrimmage, and boy, and then this was in 75, no, 75 or no, 78, I'm sorry, or somewhere in there. But anyhow, USF won the national championship that year. And, but we had, hey, we beat those guys.
Did you keep playing after that, or was that your?
Yeah, I kept playing, local men's teams. At the U.S. Army Aviation Center when I was there in the mid-'80s. I played and coached what essentially was an international team because we had players from Euro-NATO, we had players from Africa, and we even had one fellow who played in the 1982 Honduran World Cup team. And Honduras had their soccer program surpassed that of El Salvador.
Right.
And so soccer. In fact, I'm still coaching at Quincy High School, part of the coaching staff there.
Yeah.
So soccer it's an integral part of Latino society, if you will.
Right.
And it's also been a near and dear interest.
Well, and you're gonna, after we're done here filming this, recording
Yeah,
this, you're headed to go see your first Spokane Velocity soccer game.
Yes, and
right? The men's team's playing tonight, and
awesome.
And you're gonna go. You and your wife are gonna go watch.
Yes, and my wife, it'll be her first professional match.
Is that right?
Sees.
Wow.
So
this will bring back memories
oh yeah.
for you. You'll stand. You know what? You'll sit out there and you'll say, "I could play with those guys." Or you'll go. I could not have played with those guys. Report back and let me know if you could have hung with the guys because they're pretty good. We've seen a couple of games and we have tickets, and anyway, it's exciting to have that both the men and women's team here, and the women's team is playing in a much higher league. Actually, they're playing some really big cities around the country, kind of bigger cities. So,
Great.
It's great to have it here. And you're gonna love the stadium. It's really cool.
Okay.
Like it's the best in the country at that level.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's brand new.
And those soccer stadiums, if they're made specifically for soccer, they give you a community feel.
Yep. Well, and it's interesting because it was built for soccer and football and concerts.
Oh, really?
And so we're actually doing a project for the ALSC architects that built it, designed it, and they had a lot of stakeholders. So it's like they've got high school football, and you got a soccer stadium, and you've got I probably shouldn't have told you, so that when you go, I think as a soccer fan you're gonna not even know that it would have been a football field there, because you can't tell.
No, the soccer fields are usually wider than the football field.
Right, but when you watch it, it feels as built for soccer as it does for football,
right?
As it does for a concert. Willie Nelson was there with 12,000.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, last month, and outdoor concerts, so they can get anywhere from 5,000 to 12,000 people in that arena.
And again,
it's great
for the community.
That's right. That's right. Well, I ask you all about the growing up stuff and the kids stuff because you now are working as a counselor and working with kids, and you see the bullying or not in your community and at school, and you're now involved in that. But before that, you had a stint in the military. You've had a stint in law enforcement. You've had a really interesting path, I think. How did you get to, helicopters and I didn't even know about this special assignment you had for the military to go down to El Salvador. So tell me about your sort of military
Well,
travels or journey, right?
indeed, it starts with those role models you have in your life. I had an uncle who was an aviator. He was a crop duster actually, in El Salvador, and then I had another uncle who I mentioned earlier, whom we stayed with. He was in the military, and for some reason, they stick in my mind because I knew they loved me and cared for me, and they mentored me. And so in my mind, I'm thinking I want to be a pilot. Didn't know how the heck I was.
They're
gonna do
cool.
that.
I want to be a
Yeah,
pilot. Yeah.
and I'm going to be in the military like my uncle, you know, and so that started the thought, which
Well, it does
created
have an
other
impact,
things.
right?
Yes, it
Whoever those
does.
older
Yes,
kids are or people in your life that you look up to, it matters.
yes, indeed, and that's why I'm at 67, proud of being 67. I am still working, and you met me there at George Elementary, where I'm taller than all my students, right? But not
A
only
little.
that, no, but it's that role model. You have to. There are not, we have 92% Latino kids. They don't often see um, Latino male role models. And
healthy, healthy.
yeah, I mean, I'm not perfect, but I'd like to think I'm healthy.
Well, I just mean in terms of how you are.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And and they've
Positive.
yes, sir.
Positive role models.
impact.
You are that.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
And that's why I'm there. And I'm there. We can easily do it for 3 more years, and then move on to the next stage, which I already have in mind. But but so those two uncles encouraged me, gave me the thought and the ambition to, and coming to the United States, that opened up a lot of opportunities. So it was easy for me to get on a good path. I had great um, teachers that mentored me along the way, and that facilitated me going to college. Through soccer, I met a lot of positive mentors. Um, and so I figured out what I needed to do to get into the military, and I ended up in the ROTC program at the University of San Francisco, another Jesuit school.
Yeah, the
Right?
Dons.
The Dons,
That's
yeah.
right.
And so that got me my commission, and then I ended up in the Army, again playing soccer at the infantry school, Fort Benning, Georgia, and then at the Aviation Center, Fort Rucker, Alabama. And then I got stationed in Korea, and again, everywhere I went, there was soccer, which opened up many doors. Even though in Korea I didn't speak Korean other than "Hello, how are you?" "Thank you."
They play football and soccer
They
in
do,
Korea.
and that opened up many doors as well. And so that military piece um, also led me to take the tests to get into flight school. And so I ended up getting qualified as a UH-1 helicopter pilot and CH-47 helicopter pilot.
Hueys.
Hueys are the UH-1s, yeah. And then the CH-47 are the ones with the dual rotor that look like a flying banana, so to speak.
Yeah.
CH is for cargo helicopter.
Wow.
And then along the way, interesting story, along the way I went to air assault school, which I had a blast in, rappelling and getting in and out of helicopters.
James Bond.
Oh, no, not quite. But then at the airborne school, fantastic training. They train you to such very high level, and they feed you well too. But boy, they work you to death. And on my fourth out of 5 jumps to qualify. So on my fourth jump, I jump out, and it was such a violent experience because I was so small, a mere 125 pounds, and probably my equipment weighed more than I did. But I jump out of the C-130 or well, anyhow, mainly the C-130 was really violent. Jump out, and I check my canopy, and my parachute's failing.
Didn't open. Yeah. Oh my God.
And so, in that couple of seconds, my first thought was a word that rhymes with shoot. I said, this is going to hurt.
Oh, man.
Thinking that I'm going to.
How far were you above the ground?
1,200 feet.
Oh, my God.
But at 1,200 feet, the earth is magnificent, but everybody looks like ants.
Right.
And so, and then I, in that second or so, then I got mad and I said, screw this, I'm not going to die. And so I reverted to what I learned during the training, and I figured out my malfunction. And,
in the air.
Yeah.
Flying to the ground.
Yeah. And so I got out of that, and then I landed, and
it opened.
Yeah,
the parachute opened.
The canopy that had collapsed ended up opening because of the procedure I had to do, and it's just amazing. Sometimes, your muscle memory kicks in.
Right. You were completely alive.
Yeah.
And present.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
You have to be, right? Wow, there's a great short story that Hemingway wrote about the short, happy life of Francis Macomber. And if you read this,
yes.
And it's about the moment that this guy who's pretty much avoided danger his whole life is facing a tiger, literally, whether he's going to die or not, And he is completely alive in those 2 seconds before he dies, but he lived. He lived in that brief moment that you have experienced in a way that no one I know has. Mm-hmm. I bet it was different.
Yeah, both horrifying and exhilarating.
Yeah. Well, and when you landed, did you think differently about your life?
Not really. I just, I was so trained and.
But you were grateful that you made.
Of course, It's like Forrest Gump says in the movie, right? Stuff happens.
Well, you got out of that. Wow. Yeah. So tell me about this El Salvador secret mission you were on.
Well,
I don't know if it was secret.
It was hush-hush in the beginning because it was during the Reagan administration. Briefly, the Reagan administration gave, this was during the Civil War in El Salvador, early 80s, mid-80s, gave El Salvador 100 Hueys, UH-1 helicopters, but they didn't have pilots for it.
No training.
So, and this was a mission from the U.S. State Department. So the project was organized through the School of the Americas, Southern Command. So we were called the U.S. Southcom, Southern Command Training Detachment. We were based out of Fort Rucker, Alabama, the Army Aviation Center. And at that time, I had busted my knee playing soccer. so I was in the cast. But nevertheless, I was selected to be one of the cadre. I was in the training detachment. I was the executive officer. There was a commander, executive officer, 2 training officers, and a bunch of other administrative and sergeants and bus drivers. So we had a
unit.
Yeah, we started the unit from scratch. Had never been done before. Because what we did is we took a 9-month long rotary wing helicopter qualification course. We condensed it into 3 months, translated it, and taught it in Spanish. And every one of our instructor pilots were Vietnam vintage pilots that had thousands of hours, and they were mainly Chief Warrant Officer 3, Chief Warrant Officer 4, about to retire. So, but
experienced.
The Army kept them from retiring for that
mission
year or so. Yeah, and we had to pump out or produce 99 co-pilots, and we did. And
I suppose it was a huge advantage that you were from El Salvador and spoke fluent Spanish.
It's like and it was like most of my colleagues were mainly Puerto Rican, Dominicans, Cubans.
Okay.
So Costa Ricans, a couple of Mexicans.
So Hispanic or Latino.
Latino.
And we're going to talk about that because that's one of the reasons I wanted you on this to educate me on what's the difference between Latino, Latinx, Hispanic. So anyway, we'll get there.
and so it was, and mind you, because the we had the vernacular differs, especially the slang. What might be an innocuous, safe word for a Salvadoran might be very insulting and nasty towards
yeah.
somebody from the Caribbean.
Yes.
We had a lot of
Careful.
a lot of that going on, and so everybody had a lot of learning to do. But above all, we bonded with our cadets. It was interesting because all the cadets had been from the military academy. Some had been already seasoned war veterans, and I got involved with them because I was the guy that took them through their flight physicals and stood there as they were being examined. One time it was interesting to find a guy had a colonoscopy bag down his side. And
Whoa!
how did that happen? He said he had been in an inspection and somehow the 45 caliber dropped. It fired and it went through one of his. It took out half of his scrotum and it went out.
Oh my God!
And
Oh my God!
the
stuff you see, yeah.
Then we had another cadet who had been in combat, but he was just sitting in the right seat of the helicopter. He wasn't even qualified to fly, but they just needed like a sandbag there. And in that operation, he took an M60 round that went ahead and went through the back of his head and came out and took half his mouth with him, with it.
Wow!
And so,
But survived somehow.
yeah, and by the time we got him, he had a surgery and they've taken a rib and put a jawbone and he had like 3 teeth. But that guy could eat hamburgers. He just, oh my God. But anyhow, so a lot of little stories that come along the way. You bond with your students, you train them well, and then when they go back to home country, and some died in combat, and that really affected us.
So how is that for you? Going back to a country that you were born at, that is your heritage, that's at war with itself. Was there a side that you were on or not? Or were you so kind of remiss from that or removed from it that it didn't really?
Well, you know what?
You just had a job to do. I don't know.
I would tell you that I'm proud to be an American, and I saw myself as an American Army officer.
Yeah.
And I had to be a professional, and and I did what I had to do. I was obviously, let me say this tactfully. I had an uncle who was a priest. Extended, I think it's my father's cousin, but anyhow, call him uncle. He was a Jesuit priest. He was in El Salvador. And he was involved with the left and this and that. And when I went down there on a...
was your uncle?
Yeah, well, I made contact with him and I talked with him at length. And I got to hear the point of view of the left from his point of view. It was fascinating.
And you were there to support
I was.
His opponent, the right.
Yeah, of course, it was very easy for me when I was off duty to blend in and to go seek knowledge. And it was fascinating. I mean, I can understand the conflict a little better, even though I was on the opposite side.
Right. That must have been hard.
Yes and no. I was just curious, maybe, I don't know.
Did he survive? Was he okay?
Yes, he survived.
Well, that's good.
And I lost track, but he's around my father's age, and so he would be in his late 80s, early 90s.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but again, it's those conflicts. I mean, even though violence and innocent people die, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Is that the first time you had been back to El Salvador?
That's the last time I was there.
But the first time you had been back since you had left?
Yeah.
Wow.
I left in 66.
Did you remember it? Did you?
Well, yeah, I went to, being a 9-year-old, you have a pretty good memory, and so, but no, I haven't been back since, although I've been thinking about going back just to farewell type.
Yeah.
Type tour.
Bucket list.
Yeah.
One more
bucket
time.
list. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand that. Wow. That's
So,
incredible. That's incredible that you were a part of that. Who ended up winning, or did it just dissolve, or was there
no,
ever a
there
winner?
was.
There's probably no winner in that sort of
No,
thing.
there was. I want to say some kind of an agreement that they came up with the left and the right, and I guess the government formed, and then El Salvador fell into disarray with the growing of the organized gangs, MS-13, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And now they have a newly elected president that's
Keeping
making,
things stable anyway.
indeed, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough situation down there all over the place.
Yeah, indeed. And there's, is it any wonder that not only people from El Salvador, but from all those Central American countries and Mexico want to come
Right,
there?
right. Well, speaking of that, so when we met, we were doing a project for Bite to Go, which
Yes.
is an incredible organization that feeds kids on the weekends
Yes.
all across Eastern Washington, North Idaho, and you are a part of that on the ground level at George Elementary, which you said was
Yeah.
92% Latino, and and a big need kind of area, particularly for kids. And so that's when we met, and when we started to talk about, I think just at lunch or whatever, I said, I think I must have said Hispanic or I said Latino, and you're like, no, that's not right. And you gave me this chart that's kind of amazing, and I was like, that's the first time I'd had anybody sort of tell me that, and because. I don't know. I think I mean maybe I said Latino thinking I was right, and you're like, that's actually Hispanic. I don't know what it was, but for you it matters a lot, and I think for most people it does, right? That come from your heritage. So tell me, what's the difference?
Okay. Look at it this way. Anybody can be Hispanic. You of European background, you can be a Hispanic. All you have to do is embrace the culture, the food, the music.
It's not whether I was born there or not.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Hispanic is not as inclusive as Latino. Now, the new term Latinx came up, and I pondered over that. I go, okay, Latino for male, Latina for female, but Latinx is universal. So
Right.
that's why I embrace that term, Latinx. But going back to Hispanic, mainly deals with the Spanish language, Spanish culture. But Latino, if we look at the map of South America, okay, what is the biggest country in South America?
Brazil.
Yes,
Bigger than the United States.
indeed. But they're not Hispanic, are they?
No, they're not.
They're not.
They're not from Spain. There's
Exactly.
no Spanish
They're from
heritage
Portugal,
at
right?
all. They're the Portuguese piece,
And so if we just say Hispanic, we exclude the Brazilians.
which is the largest
Indeed.
population
Yeah.
in South America.
So
I
if
get
we
it.
go Latino, it's more inclusive.
Everybody south of the border of the United States is Latino.
Yeah.
So it's easy. Or Latina. Or
Yeah.
Latinx, which is
Latinx.
everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to go,
Yeah.
gender, Latino, male, Latino.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so that's great because ever since then I've used the word Latino or Latinx much more.
Oh,
Or
good
Latina.
For you. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you for that because it does feel more inclusive, and I think we're the journey you've made from 1969 or whenever you came here, 66 when you came here to today. Are you encouraged or less encouraged about how the Latino Latinx culture is being accepted here? Or depending on where you live. And we're definitely, and Spokane's different than George, which is different than Pasco and Tri-Cities, which is different than certainly California
Well,
or Texas.
I think, especially here in Eastern Washington, I think people appreciate the fact that a lot of our agricultural work is done by Latinos.
100%.
Okay. I think that's appreciated. And the majority of those Latinos are of Mexican descent. There's a few from the other countries as well. And so um, I don't feel that Latinos are being left out, so to speak.
Yeah, I think
You know.
it feels to me like it. There's more of a voice and more acceptance than I remember it.
Yes, and that's getting better, even though the state of the state
The border.
that. But let's not forget, there's other nationalities that are literally dying to get into this country, so to speak.
Yeah,
That's another topic. But
yeah, it is.
um, and so um,
You just have an interesting view of this. You've
Yeah.
got an interesting lens.
But recently, what bothers me is look at me. I can't hide what I am. I don't pass for white, nor
No.
do I want to pass for
No,
white. although
right. You are who
white
you are.
culture, Anglo culture.
Yeah. Although you
Has many
you spent
positives too.
the vast majority of your time as an American
Yeah, I'm an American.
citizen who speaks
Yeah.
fluent English. Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I think, oh gosh, I'm going to be all over the place, but I think through education and understanding, I think we can overcome differences, and we can get along. Because look, I'm at the table. I want my fair piece of the American pie.
You
I'm an
deserve
American.
it. You deserve it.
And
Yeah, you serve this country.
yeah, and I'd be one of the first to tell you, hey, if you don't like it here, well, you have a choice.
Right?
Find a better place.
Right.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But
You can't. We're not putting the genie back in the bottle.
indeed, you can't. You can't.
And why would you want to? I mean, this entire country is built of people. Everybody who's here is from somebody who was an immigrant that came to this country.
Yeah, and why did
Everybody.
they come? I mean, the basic root, people came here for a better life,
For a
period.
better life.
Better
Yeah.
opportunities.
Right.
But therein lies the dilemma, if you will, because if you don't prepare yourself, you're going to miss out on opportunities. And I'm big on education. Like
Right.
Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world. He didn't mean it a weapon as in violence. No,
It's an instrument.
tool, an instrument for you to change your world and
In your family's world and
Yeah.
their family's world.
And
yeah.
we have so many opportunities, and we still have not only Latinos, but we still have Anglos, we still have African Americans, we still have people of all ethnicities
Ukrainians,
missing
Russians,
out. Yes, missing
everybody.
out on opportunities.
Oh yeah. In Spokane, the school district share, I think it is over 80 different languages are spoken in by the kids who go to
I'm not
school
surprised.
in District 81. It's like I think it's in the 90s. That's how many different dialects and speakers there are here. I mean, the melting pot is not changing.
And
I've often wondered this question. There's so much. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to. But what would happen if the border opened? Let's just pretend if that border opened, what would happen?
well, let me liken it.
Would
to,
it be chaos or would it be like, okay, whatever?
All right, I sure hope not. But let me liken it to, if you're going to come to my house,
Like it's Canada. Let's pretend it's I don't know.
if you're going to come to my house, please follow the rules. Please.
Take your shoes
the
off
right
if I
thing.
want you to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
have the respect and
respect my
decency.
stuff.
Yeah, it's not. If you want something, ask for it, and we'll see if we can. We can make it a win-win. But it kind of it's irritating when people just if we did not have laws and structure and systems, we would be chaos. And who wins in chaos?
Nobody.
So,
Certainly not the disadvantaged.
um, gosh,
I mean, there's a border in Canada too.
yeah, there is.
You know,
Um,
but anyway,
no, and this is,
I almost wonder if it would at some point regulate and be a normal thing.
no,
I don't know. Maybe I'm probably super naive and crazy about that.
well, there's got to be some kind of regulation.
Yeah, there has to
But
be.
how are we going to do that?
Right. Well, it takes everybody to figure it out. That's the problem. Any great solution takes everybody.
Yeah.
You know, solve homelessness, it's doable. He's got to, at least manage it. You just got to have everybody agree. And it isn't usually a resource problem, it's an agreement problem. And
I would agree with you.
yeah, so hopefully that can happen someday where where people at least agree or, trying to anyway. I don't know.
But no, gosh, I take somebody much brighter and smarter than me, obviously.
Either you or
because-
me to figure that out.
No kidding. But you got to go to the root cause of things. Along those lines, just let me share a story with you. So I'm in Korea, 1982, my first assignment as a lieutenant, and one of my colleagues is a West Point graduate. I'll refer to him as Captain B, give him some anonymity. And so Captain B and I always had, this was around the time the Sandinistas were making a presence in Nicaragua.
Yeah.
And Captain B became a good friend of mine and mentor. He was a West Point graduate, right? But I had wanted to go to West Point, but I couldn't get in because not a U.S. citizen. I was not a U.S. citizen at the time.
You weren't born in this country, yeah.
Right. I wasn't even naturalized then. And so Captain B, him and I had a lot of discussions, and he related to me that he had, at West Point, he had been the roommate. His roommate was Anastasio Somoza III. Remember, the Somozas are a legacy.
Yeah.
And the first West Point graduate, Anastasio Somoza, who was the president or the ruler of Nicaragua in the 80s, right? The ones who the Sandinistas overthrew.
Yes.
He's also a West Point graduate.
I didn't know
he
that.
had,
Wow.
Yeah, he had
He had a military background. I
the
didn't realize.
third there. And then Captain B related that him and Somoza would always get into these heated discussions. And basically, prior to that, I'll tell you that, he says to me, there was no significant social or athletic event that we did not go to. We went to Super Bowls. We went to NBA Finals. We went to, hockey game.
Final Four.
And he said, and you know what? And we always had bodyguards, and we always had anything we wanted, and we always had female escorts. Yeah. And so anyhow, so getting back to what Brown was telling me, well, I say their name, but anyhow, Captain B was telling me that Somoza's attitude was, screw them. They don't deserve anything. So what if they want to better their family? Because Captain B's premise was that all these people want is to provide to their families and an opportunity to better themselves.
That's right.
But Somoza's point of view was, no, they're there to serve us.
Right.
And that attitude, that strong attitude.
Serf mentality.
Yeah. It's
Ca-
still
that caste-
pervading right now in Venezuela.
That caste system
Yes, it is a caste system.
is probably, I don't know if it's every bit as strong as you'd find in India, but similar, right? You can only
It
go
is.
so far.
Well, that's what, if you look at history, since the conquest of the Americas, since the 1520s, the Spaniards established a caste system where at the very bottom was the indigenous.
Yeah.
At the very top was the Spaniard born in Spain.
That's right.
Then the Spaniard born in New Spain. And then here at the bottom was the imported black slave. And then between those two rungs and the two upper rungs, there's people like me, mixed, mestizos. Mestizos. And remember, the Spaniards, unlike other Northern Europeans, when they came to the New World, I refer to them as equal opportunity fornicators because they left their family in Spain and created new families here,
Right.
whereas the the English or the Northern Europeans, no, they pretty much kept to themselves.
Right. Right. Right.
Right, and woe unto
Didn't
them,
mix.
yeah, if they would mix with the indigenous, you know. And so, but the Spaniards did establish a caste system, a system of encomiendas, you know, of rights and privileges, and that's
The haves and the have-nots.
exactly.
And it's still there.
It's still there. And is it any wonder that people want to
Come
come
to a
this
place
country?
where that doesn't exist, or at least it exists a lot. You have more chance here
You
to
do.
avoid a caste system than
Right.
you do down there. Absolutely.
And then you get into American history with the abolition of slavery, right? But farms, the land still needs to be worked. So who do they turn to?
Right.
Who's closest to us?
That's right.
You know, Mexico's close to us.
That's
so
right.
let's allow them to come and go, and then, you know, the Mexicans
Get the
realize-
work done.
Yeah, and they realize eventually, look, I'm better off in the U.S.
Right.
And so think about this, and I learned this not long ago after reading. For every 3 Mexicans born in Mexico, 1 settles permanently in the U.S. But it's not that one; it's one in his or her extended family.
Right. Right. Right.
So is it any wonder that most of the Latinos here in the U.S. are of Mexican descent?
Of course. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, so anyhow,
Wow.
that's just my take.
No, I appreciate it. That's I was so happy that you talked to me because that's what you and I discussed down there, and I thought, wow, this is just not something that I know about. You know, and you do, and you're a student of this stuff too, and you're a student of history, and that matters. But you're also, you know, from there, and you lived it, you know, and I think we need to hear more of that, you know. And so when you went from, you got done with your military career.
Yeah,
You transition to law enforcement, which is often a natural path.
Yeah, and you know what? I've always had an affinity or a desire to go into law enforcement. And the story repeats itself where, oh, Spanish-speaking officer. And I was able to get involved in interesting cases from, you know, narcotics to murders. I was always that asset that helped interpret, bridge the gap.
Been an interpreter your whole life.
Oh,
right?
I have, you know, and eventually I got the certification from the state because every time I went to court, I was always being scrutinized by the defense attorneys.
For sure.
Yeah.
Wow. So where did that happen mostly? California, or was that, did you start to, because you haven't been up here that long.
No, well, I left the military after the reduction in force when the Clinton administration went in. And so they offered a very nice severance package, so I took it. And then went into law enforcement. I was basically in law enforcement from 95 until 2007.
Where was that mostly?
And I started with in the city of Seattle as a parking enforcement officer. And then I ended up, most of my law enforcement was in Auburn, the city of Auburn, Washington.
So what did you learn in that experience? Because you said you were involved in lots of situations.
You know, above all, if you treat people with respect, even the criminal element, their humanity will come out, and they'll show compliance, they'll confess, you know. So everybody basically, we're human beings, you know, and some are evil.
Yeah,
so
just
people
how it
are
is.
nasty and evil.
Yeah.
But most of the people, even those that I apprehended and arrested, there was some humanity to them, and when you get to that core, then you get, like I said, compliance.
Any ever moments where you were really worried for your life?
There were,
especially as an
we
interpreter,
call knockdown, drag-out fights. But look at me, you know, in the top of my game in law enforcement, I only weigh like about 135 pounds. you
Still
know,
seem
with a
pretty tough.
six-pack, no longer, man. I'm like middle-aged Billy now. But, and so I, you know, one time my partner had played for Vince Lombardi and the Green Bay Packers. He was a mountain of a man.
I'm with that guy.
And so he said, we're twins. Oh my gosh. But anyhow.
Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. No, but it was, Lonnie was his name. He had a
Wow.
Swedish name. Lonnie something. But anyhow, that officer, the senior officer when I joined Auburn PD, wonderful guy, but oh boy, did he ride that? Yeah, we're twins. Anyhow, I mean, and so I had to rely on my brains, you know, to get compliance and because being in law enforcement,
You're dissolving.
you're
dissolving situations.
oh my gosh, you have a lot. Yeah, not a lot. I would say not a lot. Some what we call knockdown dragouts, and where you're literally fighting for your life, you know. And it's amazing, though. I would say that back in the day in Auburn PD, we had a really nice defensive tactics program, so we were very proficient at, you know, defending ourselves, going hands-on, arm bars, chokeholds.
I'm not gonna mess with you, dude.
You know, and you know, and I can tell you that I came in, thankfully, you know, less than a handful of instances where I had
You had to use
people,
it. Yeah.
people that drew my gun and was able to get compliance.
Wow.
You know, you have to use a couple of expletives along the way, but
Mm-hmm.
and you have to mean it.
Right.
You know, but that presence. And
Yeah.
fortunately, I got compliance in those situations. But I can tell you right now, had I had to shoot and kill, I would have done it
Yeah.
because
Well,
that was my job.
you were trained to do that.
Highly trained.
That's
to do
exactly
that.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And if you weren't, you wouldn't be in that position.
Indeed.
Yeah. You would
So-
never get to be in that position.
But no, I would encourage anybody who wants to go into law enforcement, pursue it.
Yeah.
And once you get into it, it's like in the military. The military is not for everybody. Neither is law enforcement. Just like teaching, you know.
Right.
So.
And that's what's fascinating about you is all the journeys, all the different, very different paths you've
Oh,
had.
I'm not done yet.
Well, I know. I can't wait to hear about that. But you go from, you know, military, you know, some big operations, law enforcement, some big moments, and then you end up in teaching and counseling and helping and serving. I guess they're all servant positions, really, in their own way.
They have
But
all.
how did that happen?
I don't know.
How did you end up, you know, kind of the male role model of George Elementary? Really, you are a counselor and you're there helping families every day. I mean, I guess it's not that big a leap, but how'd that happen?
Well, always been, I guess, a common thread is service.
Right.
Service.
Yeah.
Okay, and because even in the military, you're a leader. You take care of your troops. Well, I was mentored by a Medal of Honor winner too, who I learned a lot about leadership and taking care of troops.
Medal of Honor in the military.
Yeah, in Vietnam era, Medal of Honor winner, Kern Dunagan, Dunagan. Kern Dunagan. He fortunately passed from cancer but he won the Medal of Honor in Vietnam.
Wow.
Just a fascinating man. He was my guest, and he bestowed my U.S. citizenship when I got granted that.
When was that?
That was in December of 1980.
Oh,
I was already commissioned, and they expedited that process for me because I needed to get a security clearance.
right.
And so
What was that moment like for you?
it was like, wow. It was wonderful, especially to be honored by a Medal of Honor winner.
Yeah.
You know, my friend and mentor, Colonel D, as we knew him. And so, so going back to your question, the common thread is service.
Yeah.
And And there's got to, there's also a little bit of egocentrism too, because if we did not have that, we wouldn't have,
Confidence,
yeah, confidence, ambition,
machismo, whatever it
yeah,
is, gravitas,
and
ambition.
and just like hope is not a solo project. You got to have help along the way, and you got to be able to, be humble and accept that help, or um, and also realize that you're not all that as much as you think you might be. You are
Yeah.
not all that.
No.
We're not sufficient unto ourselves.
Right. It's a village.
Indeed, and I do believe that. But and so again, I go back to being that servant leader, that servant person, ambitious, because I can share with you that you want to maintain a certain quality lifestyle, if you will. You need money.
Yeah. Right.
You need money,
Right.
and you need good people along the way, just like hope, to build that hope and to maintain it. You need people that need to lift you up, not bring you down.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny because I look back at my life, and every dozen years I made a major change. And I'm coming up on that dozen years here.
Oh boy.
The
Here we
next
go.
step. But I've already started the process. I want to go and be a mental health counselor.
Wow.
So again, that'll take me into my 80s if I don't pass on.
Or longer. No, because then
Knock on
there'll be
wood.
another 12 years and you'll want to do something else.
Who knows?
Into your 90s.
I'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
Wow. Oh, that's really cool. Wow. So how did you become? What brought you to George Washington?
That lady over there, my wife. No, she had grown up in Wenatchee.
Okay.
And so we met on the west side, and we had been together about 7, 8 years before, 6, 7 years before she moved back here, because her son and her granddaughters are here in Wenatchee. And so I followed, and on a whim I applied. You know, I've gotten jobs on a whim, so to speak. I mean, there's been a process, and I've had to prepare myself to get qualified to be able to apply for that particular job.
Sure.
But on a whim, I had no idea where George was. I knew the gorge was nearby. And so I applied. I applied to Wenatchee School District, and that didn't go anywhere. I applied to other school districts, but I also applied to Quincy School District.
Mm-hmm.
And so the interview came, and I mean, they contacted me for an interview. And when I went there, I go, this is where I want to be. This is where I need to be.
How did you know that? Could you just feel it?
Feeling, I suppose. Yeah. And I've been blessed, with brains and smarts most of the time. And so I prepare myself for the interview. And I did very well. And so after the interview, the principal took me aside. Hey, I'm also looking for a mentor. I think you would make, you would be that for me as well.
Oh wow.
And I go, well, if you want me, I'm yours.
So tell me what you do there. What's your job, and how satisfying is it? Because it sure seems like you love it.
I do. It's extremely satisfying because as the school counselor, I'm like the ambassador of hope. I'm a role model. I educate kids, social emotional learning. We do a lot of that. Basically help them start building their knowledge, skills, and abilities that are going to help them function in life, regulate their emotions, get along with each other. I teach.
Learn that things are possible.
Yes. I teach bullying prevention classes. We also teach personal safety classes in the spring, and that's a curriculum that we follow.
Sure felt like the safest school I've ever been in my life.
Oh, well, thanks for that. But you know what? It takes, we have a wonderful staff there. Um, and
And the happiest. Like everybody seems really happy there.
well, I'm glad you have that impression. I would echo
May
that.
not be true. I don't know.
Well,
But
it's
that
not true
was,
100%, but and let me tell you, there's a high degree of happiness and hope there. You know, we have good leadership there
Yeah.
from the top on down.
yeah.
Our
The
our
kids are just sweet.
yes, they are. But you know, that also says something about the parenting going on at
Yeah.
home. And parents are, you know, parents are parents. They got to spend most of their time working and providing for their kids. But and we have some challenging behaviors that happen from time to time. But thankfully, um, for me, I've been blessed by being there, and that's where I'm going to retire.
What's it given you?
Continued hope, continued um, economic viability.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I mean, I don't get paid riches, but I get paid well.
Yeah.
It allows me to pursue my other interest, which is coaching soccer, and I also teach driver's ed. I do that with the adolescents in Ephrata, Moses Lake, and Wenatchee. It allows, it gives me flexibility to do that because I'm on a teacher's schedule. You know, we basically
Yeah, you
have
get summers off.
summers off,
Right.
weekends, holidays,
Right.
and so I still need to spend more time at home because my wife and the dogs need me at home too.
Yeah,
More
right.
so
It's
my
big.
wife.
You could be there all day at that place. Yeah.
Indeed. So it fills me. You know, people say, Rafael, you're crazy. You're a driving instructor. And man, it's therapeutic because, you know, the way our society is, if I don't do it, and I really enjoy doing it, I'm good at it, and the kids respond, the students respond.
It matters.
Adult client, yeah. And basically, my my recipe is very simple. Treat them like you would want them to treat you. Treat them
Yeah.
respectfully.
Yeah.
You know, at times you're going to have to
Right.
lower the boom, so to speak, or enforce the boundary.
Yeah.
But people respond to kindness. You know, people will, you know, to paraphrase another educator or poet, kids will may not remember everything you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Right.
And that's just part of being human,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. And
So
with
how-
that, you get a lot of compliance.
How hopeful are you for those kids that they're going to, especially seeing somebody like you that has achieved as much as you have,
And you know,
still hanging out with them and showing them, hey, you know what? It's possible for you to do pretty much anything you want. That belief in what's possible, you really bring there.
well, thank you, but I'm not the only one. There are others, and I'm seeing even in my own school district, there are others that are rising there.
Yeah.
Younger.
It's
and-
there though.
Yeah.
Those
And-
kids
and,
are
you know,
getting it.
and kudos to our leadership, you know, our Dr. Nick Bergman.
Yeah, Nick's cool. Yeah.
He really facilitates growth, so to speak.
He is.
I am very much hopeful for my kids, my students. But as I said earlier, you know, hope is not a solo project. You've got to be there for those kids, even on those hard and difficult times. You got to be there to prop them up and empower them, if you will. So I tell them, you know, do better than your parents. I share my story because I do believe they can do better than me. But a common message is also you must prepare yourself.
You got to be ready.
Yeah, because the opportunities are there,
They are.
but they're not going to be given to you. And believe it or not, I have similar talks from kinders through fifth graders, and of course now I'm coaching at the high school, so the adolescents, you know, and through my driving training, they hear that message too. You know, I'm not, by no means, I'm not perfect, you know, but while I'm capable and able, I'll keep on contributing positively.
So just, you know, we had Tom Stevenson on on the podcast who hasn't come out yet, but he's actually one of the people that founded Bite to Go. I don't know. You probably have never met Tom. Maybe
No, I have not.
Amazing guy. He's gonna
Okay.
and so in a future episode he will I don't know. We don't know when these were coming out at what time, so it may have already been out. But he really walks through kind of he'll walk through how Bite to Go came about and what the impact it was. But what has it done for that school and that school district, which is, I mean, I don't know how many kids are getting a Bite to Go kit, which is food for the weekend for them and their family.
Yeah. In my school, it's 65 of my 170 kids that get it. All my kids want it, but we had to vet those 65 and make sure that the ones that really needed it are the ones that get it. They look forward to it. And I know that some kids have come up to me. 65 out of approximately 170 kids get it. All want it because when I distribute, and as much as you try to be discreet, the kids know. They talk among each other. I got volunteers coming up to me at the beginning of the week asking me, can they help me in the distribution of the snacks at the end of the week? And I know that, this past year, once in a while, not that frequently, thankfully, but I do have kids that come up to me and say, Mr. Rapp, can I have some food? We didn't have much this weekend. And so I always keep extras, and I'm able to give them, those high quality snacks that Bite to Go provides.
Not easy for them to ask.
I would say so, but I don't think that. I think the need is there, and so they're
asking.
Yeah.
Good for them.
And I think part of the reason why they approach me is because they feel comfortable with me.
Yeah.
We have such a nurturing staff, and not just me, it's the ladies in the
Yeah.
front office.
Like
Teachers.
I said, it just feels that way there. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
It's a big family.
Mm-hmm. And so it has definitely made a significant, very positive impact upon our students. The program has grown. Right now last year we brought on a new elementary school. And this year we're bringing another one. I think eventually the goal is to have all of the 5 elementary schools get Bite to Go. And I think that's the direction that is headed.
That'd be awesome.
Because
it needs big.
Yes, it is. And unfortunately, our kids that are at George Elementary, they get a free breakfast, they get a free lunch. And then and those 65 get the snacks for the weekend.
Because if they're not fed when they come to school on Monday, they can't learn.
No, it's true, that emotional nurturing is not enough. They also need the food.
Yep.
And the hydration, of course.
And Second Harvest brings that food to George.
Yes.
So that's amazing. They got a van, and somebody's driving that. They have volunteers.
Those volunteers are awesome. I've met retired FBI agents. I've met retired teachers. Other interesting people that that come and deliver that once a month, and you kind of get to know them. You bond with them.
Yeah, and they're driving it out there, whether it's snowing or once a month. They're getting that food to you, and you keep it and dole it out for the rest of the week.
Yes.
Yeah.
And believe me, if I'm able to, let's say that we had 1 or 2 kids missing, well, I'll hang on to that and give it to them on Monday. Or Steve was gracious enough to give me some extra snacks, so that was my reserve.
Yeah,
it came in handy.
Steve from Second Harvest,
Yeah.
He's a good dude.
Yeah. So
he'll be very excited that we mentioned him on here.
Oh, well, he's a great guy.
He is a great guy, but he'll love the attention. Let's be honest.
We got your back, Steve.
Steve gets some props. That's cool. Well, okay. So what's next?
We continue on this path. We get better at it. We at Quincy School District we have a big not push but a big emphasis on hope. Hope, the science of hope, which hope is not just wishful thinking. I hope you're feeling well. Oh, that's wishful thinking, right? I hope that I win the lottery. That's wishful thinking. Um, but hope is, you know, uh, the self knowledge, if you will, that overall your life will get better, will be better tomorrow than it was today.
Yeah.
You know, one of the many little definitions that I like is one that says, hope makes the impossible possible.
And I think that, are you seeing that transition from the kids to the parents?
Um, I think the parents see what we are doing at George, and it's evident because our parental events are highly attended, and the parents they're very there are very few, if any, complaints ever. Most of the complaints we get, oh, my son or my daughter is saying that she's being bullied. Well, we're on that. We figured that out, and then we take care of that.
Those are
But
very rare.
rare, but nevertheless
They're real.
they still happen.
Yeah.
But I think our parents see what our staff at George is doing with their children, which the time they're in school, they're our children by law.
That's right. Yeah.
We are
Caretakers.
parents there. Yeah, and so they see that, and so they support that, and they
And they're involved because it's the gathering place of the community.
yes, and you know what? But we also need to educate them too. Like last year, I did what do you call a parent education PowerPoint, and we had not a lot of parents, but we're gonna hopefully we'll expand it. Where in that presentation, I let them know not only what I do as a counselor, but what we're doing there, and what how important their role as good parents, so to speak, is to their child's social emotional learning. And the kids need that because
You can't just have it at school and go home and not get it.
exactly.
You can't have it at home and not get it at school.
Indeed,
it's really
it's
the connecting of those two places is
yes.
big.
But when our kids leave high school, especially in our community there at Quincy, there are not a lot of opportunities.
Mm.
Because it is what it is. It's a rural community with limited opportunities. Yes, it is growing, but again, we have to make sure that these young adults, young high school graduates, are prepared for the next step.
And can live into something.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. It matters a ton that you're there for them. Because if that's me in that role, it's not going to matter as much. It's not. I'm not a Latino guy.
Yeah. No, it is a blessing that I'm who I am, and I can exemplify that.
Yeah.
I can role model that.
Oh, 100, yeah.
Yeah.
Big.
But most of our staff is not Latino.
Right. For sure.
But they're wonderful, capable.
Yeah, but I just think I think they do. You can see how they identify with you in a way that is really special. And that's not just because you're Latino.
But I'm taller than them right now.
And you're barely taller than them. But you are taller than them. I will swear that I saw that you were taller than 90% of the kids.
Indeed.
Okay, well, good luck on the
Thank you.
mental health side.
Thank you.
That's coming in your future. Wow,
Yeah,
you're gonna
work
make
to do.
you've done a lot.
I just submitted my application last week for my associate's license, and I have to in the next 3 years. I'll accomplish what I need to do.
We need an army of people doing that.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
I mean,
And even more so bilingual.
Well,
bilingual counselors.
yeah, even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know.
You're not going to not be busy.
But again, I got to keep a good balance because it's my wife that needs my attention,
That's
and
right.
I need hers.
Yeah.
My dogs too.
Yeah. And you've got soccer to watch
Yeah.
right now. You're going to go
Indeed.
see it. Well,
Oh, we're gonna
thanks
get
for
there.
being here. I
You're welcome,
appreciate
sir.
it. You're an inspiration to me.
Oh,
And
thank you.
And enjoy the football match.
We shall. We shall.
MIP Podcast was filmed at the studio of Corner Booth Media. Please sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere podcasts can be found. We'd love it if you'd rate, review, and subscribe to help our podcast grow. Be good to yourself and stay interesting.